right. We are going live. Pledge of Allegiance will do it. We'll do- Are we ready? Here. Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Portsmouth School Committee meeting of Tuesday, September 27th. Would you please rise and join me in a pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence for our troops in harm's way. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, prior to this meeting, we had an executive session which recessed, so we will seal the minutes after we finish open session here. Moving on to chairperson's remarks, please let the record reflect that Ms. McDade is absent tonight. All other committee members are present. If we have an emergency, which hopefully we won't, we have exit doors here, back here, and we meet over at the school admin building. The only thing I have on chairperson's remarks tonight is an update from our school committee workshop, which was held on the Friday, the 16th, I think it was. We reviewed the 16th. We reviewed the superintendent's past goals, looked at some upcoming goals potentially for this year, which is on the business agenda, reviewed subcommittee lists, presentations for teaching and learning, admin updates, and a strategic plan item, which is also on the agenda for tonight. Workshops are for discussion and no votes were taken, obviously. Moving on to subcommittee updates. We had the district building subcommittee on September 23rd. And Ms. Blank, Mr. Diuro, Dr. Tengworthy jump in on this. There was some good news, some bad news, and some hold this space news, I guess. The good news is on the business items, B and C tonight, agenda for public discussion. The bad news, you'll notice that the PMS bathrooms are not on the list for action tonight because they came in way over budget. So they're going to go back and review the numbers and see where the discrepancies are, so to speak. So that will probably be on our next agenda because it was quite the outlier. And then the Watch This Space news, and this is something important for teachers who are sitting here tonight. By the way, welcome everybody. Very nice to see you all. We talked about the HVAC AC units that are going into the elementary schools. That's about 10 million of the $21 million capital fund request. So it's a big chunk, and correct me if I get anything wrong here. But they had a presentation on what they were suggesting for the units, which looked really nice because you had individual controls in the classroom within a range with AC and heat. The issue was, or not the issue, but maybe a potential concern was, you can't open your windows once these things are installed because you remove kind of the envelope, I guess is what they called it, for heating and cooling. So I think this is something that principals are going to want to bring back to the buildings. And I know Dr. Viveris was talking about the need for a lot of training if that goes in, just to make sure people understood how it would work. But it did look to be very efficient and effective as an option. But we'll probably have that. Dr. Kenworthy, did you want to have that presentation for the whole school committee at some point on that?
Discuss at the next building committee meeting.
Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of a watch this space thing. And then the other thing, watch this space, is that obviously with all the air conditioning, the electrical bill is going to go up. So that's something we're going to need to be planning for in budgets. The good news is our electrical rate is locked in, right?
Yes, it is.
So that's the positive there, unlike many Rhode Island ratepayers who are going to be seeing a huge increase. But that does make us think about, are there solar opportunities? So I'm hoping that we can kind of look at that. So, Mr. Ferber. You need to put your mic on.
Considering solar previously because of the conflict with the wind turbine arrangement?
Yes, we did when it was a net metering situation because we have no more electrical costs we can offload with
Right.
credits, but I'm told there are other opportunities, but I am leery of solar. Just whenever we talk about fastening things to our roofs, I get very, very nervous. So
So it would be a selling of solar, but still buying our electricity from the wind turbine, basically. I think North Smithfield did something where they had a parking lot with a pavilion over the top with solar on the covered parking lot. So anyway, I just think it's something we ought to consider moving forward, but it's not on the agenda tonight. So now to the best thing on the agenda tonight. We're trying to get to this so that you guys can all go home and not spend your night at a meeting, is recognition of new teachers joining the Portsmouth School District. We're really, really pleased to see you here, and I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Kenworthy.
Thank you. So yes, always a great night for the school, or school committee agendas where we recognize our new teachers. So this year we hired a record number of new teachers, as I've been updating you on. We have a lot of representation here this evening, so it's great to see. And I think probably the easiest thing to do is to maybe call everyone up by school. And then I know we have most of our principals here as well. And I can turn things over to each principal and have them introduce those staff members who are here. So if everyone who is here from Melville could come up to the podium, please.
Good evening, school committee, and thank you for allowing us this opportunity to celebrate our new teachers. So here we have Hannah Vanook on our kindergarten team. Welcome, Hannah. Do you want to?
Hi, I'm Hannah Vanook. I'm originally from Prescott, Arizona, and I went to Northern Arizona University. And then I moved to Rhode Island a year ago. So I've been here pretty new. And yeah, I'm in the kindergarten spot over at Melville and have been loving it. I it was winter. I was living in Denver, Colorado, so I had some snow. Yeah.
We have our school nurse, Alexia Trainer.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having me. I actually grew up in Portsmouth. I went to St. Philomena's and then went to the Portsmouth Abbey. I'm very happy to be a part of the Portsmouth team. I'm a registered nurse. I have a background in some school nursing as well as emergency room nursing, psych nursing, cardiology. And I feel like I'm in a dream. This has been really fun. So thank you.
We have Caroline Heffernan on our grade 1 team.
Hello, everyone. I am a graduate of Portsmouth High School. I went through school here in Portsmouth. This is my 4th year here in Portsmouth. I've bounced around a little bit the last 4 years, but I'm really excited to have this permanent position here. So thank you for having me.
And last but certainly not least, Ali Apisi on our kindergarten team.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm Allie. I am on the kindergarten team over at Melville. I actually grew up in Rhode Island. I lived in Providence for most of my life, then moved to Johnston. So this is about my 3rd year in Portsmouth and I'm loving it, and now it's permanently mine. So I'm loving it. Thanks, guys.
Congratulations.
Come on down, school committee over.
Great. So welcome to all of our new teachers from Millville. Next up, why don't we have everyone who's here from Hathaway come on up? And Mrs. Little is here as well.
Which school hired the most teachers?
Was kind of a competition.
Millville or
What is it?
Hathaway?
No, no, it really wasn't. But thank you for having us here tonight. I've always said that one of the most important jobs a principal has to do is hire the best people around. I don't want to cry, but it is true. We spent a lot of this summer as principals hiring people, and it just felt like it was never ending, but it was so worth it. And I feel that we all got the best people that we could get. And I have goosebumps and I say it every day. So let's let you hear from them because really they're amazing. So, all right, let me see where I am. We're going to start. Okay, Stephanie. So Stephanie Donofalo is one of our, we have one and Melville has one, but she's one of the behavior interventionists that Dr. Viveras got in that grant that we are super excited about. So Stephanie.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Donolfo. I'm the behavior interventionist. I'm from Mass, but I've kind of been everywhere. I graduated from Keene State, taught in New Hampshire for a little bit, got my master's at UNE, taught in Mass. So I've taught preschool, kindergarten, first grade, all the way up to sixth grade as just kind of everything. So thank you for having me.
Okay, up next, to our special education team, we have Lizzie Ferris. Got married. Got to remember that. She was with us before during COVID. So Ferris now, Lizzie Ferris.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm Lizzie Ferris. I grew up in Middletown and I moved to Portsmouth. So I live in Portsmouth now. I graduated from Rhode Island College and I did my student teaching at Hathaway. So I'm extremely blessed to be back. I love Hathaway so much and I am part of the third grade team. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, and up next again on our special education team, our speech and language pathologist, we have Abby Horsman.
Good evening, everyone. I am Abby Orisman, and I'm the speech language pathologist at Hathaway. I'm originally from East Providence, Rhode Island. I went to Syracuse University after high school and then was working in Boston at a K-7 school for the last few years, but I'm really excited and honored to be here in Portsmouth and loving Happy Hathaway.
Are you glad that we don't have to wear masks as a speech pathologist?
So up next, we have a member of our third grade team we're excited to have, and that is Elizabeth Hoey.
Hello, good evening. My name is Elizabeth Hoey. I recently relocated to Portsmouth from Connecticut. I graduated with my undergrad and graduate degree from Marist College in Poughkeepsie, New York. And I taught for 10 years in Connecticut, first, second, and fifth grade. And happy to be teaching third grade this year. And just to reiterate, now I know why they call it Happy Hathaway.
And last but certainly not least, we have our nurse, Nurse Chrissy Habishaw. And Chrissy, so when we hired Nurse Alex and then Nurse Alex left, you know, it's hard to find all positions, but we were like, oh my gosh, we have to find another nurse. Well, anyway, they were parents. Chrissy was a parent in the community and they moved to Hawaii. And when they went to Hawaii, they had sent back this beautiful box full of Hawaiian goodies and lays because they missed Hathaway. They missed us, right? And all of a sudden it was Emily Rahilly who said, you know, Chrissy, she's a nurse, you know. And so that's where it all started. Anyway, so Chrissy's back, right?
I'm Chrissy Habershaw. I'm a military wife. My husband is currently stationed on one of the big white ships now in Newport. He was stationed here prior and then obviously devastated us all and moved us to Hawaii. I know it sounds crazy, but it was terrible. It was lovely, but it was terrible. But I think someone works in mysterious ways. So I'm back and I couldn't be happier.
When she gets your hotel.
I know, right?
You don't.
Let's say happy Halloween.
All right, next up, how about everyone who's here from the middle school and Mr. Aruda?
Thank you. And we're also extremely excited to introduce all of our new hires to our Portsmouth Middle School community. Powerful Portsmouth Middle School community. I have with us John DeGantia. He's our PE health teacher.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here at Portsmouth. I'm a native Rhode Islander as well. I was born and raised in Westerly. Graduated from the University of Rhode Island in 2016, had a 4-year stint in New York. I migrated back up here because of COVID 2020. So I was working at Tiverton for a couple of years, and I'm lucky enough to find a position here at Portsmouth. I love it here. You know, the district is fantastic. You know, support system is amazing. So now, and I'm happy and really excited about a club that I'm starting actually next week. I'm starting a chess club at the middle school. So to my understanding, there used to be one and it was pretty successful. So I'm reviving it. And so far we have 58 students who signed up. So we're going to need some more chessboards. And if anyone's interested in helping, you know, that'd be great. 58 is kind of a lot. So again, thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you.
I don't know if you noticed, Mr. DiOrio, when he said that he don't look directly at you. He knows where the money is coming from. Next, we have Lauren Campbell. She's a former student of ours in Portsmouth, and now we have hired her as a grade 5 teacher.
All right. Hi, everybody. As you know, I'm the grade 5 teacher at the Portsmouth Middle School. I'm teaching ELA and social studies. I'm born and raised here in Portsmouth, so it's kind of fun to kind of be back here where I started. And I'm looking forward to it. It's my first year of teaching, and yeah, just can't wait to get started.
A lot of stories tonight. I have to say that William had a tough time this afternoon. He blew out a tire, but he needed to be here. So he did his best to be here with us tonight. So I really appreciate that. William is teaching the 21st century course at Portsmouth Middle. William Hamilton.
And I was leaving the dealership too, and they gave me this tire that was completely blown too. So amazing day. But I'm William Glenn. Good evening, everyone. And I grew up in New York City. I got my bachelor's and master's in education from UMass. Spent the past 8 years working in Providence and Woonsocket teaching history. And I'm just really excited to have the opportunity to have a new career path working for 21st Century Skills and continue developing the program that to me seems really worthwhile to give students at that age an idea of, for a direction of where they want to go moving forward. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be a part of this team. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Hopefully it wasn't the roads in Portsmouth that did it.
No.
Okay, just checking.
And lastly, we have Haley. She was green during the summertime and then she became done. Come on up. She's our grade 5 teacher, grade 6, I'm sorry.
Hi, I'm Haley Dunn. I teach 6th grade ELA and social studies. I'm from North Kingstown originally. For my undergrad, I went to University of Rhode Island. And then after that, I did my master's in education at Brown. And then I was in Central Falls for the past 6 years teaching 5th grade. And so I'm really excited to be teaching 6th grade. I really love this school community. Thanks.
Yes, we will take a picture, Mrs. Little. Come on up, guys.
15 years, you guys are gonna look back on this picture.
All right, and last but not least, anyone who's here from the high school, come on up. You want, yeah, great. Yeah, Dr. Rio was going to be here, but had something come up at the last minute. So Ms. Ritter, our induction coach, will take the responsibilities here. Thank you.
Okay, we have two of our new Portsmouth High School teachers here tonight. Eliza Peliotis, I'm sorry, Peliotis. I'm not coaching her on a regular basis because she has tons of experience. So I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with your last name, but she teaches math.
Hi, I'm Eliza Peliotis. I live in Portsmouth. I've been here for 9 years. I grew up in Central Mass. I went to school at Roger Williams and then I never went back. I taught in Barrington for 17 years. So I came here this year because my kids are here. I'm part of the community. And I thought, what better way than to be at the school too? So I'm super excited to be at high school.
And this is Charlotte North. Charlotte is running our new senior project, senior exhibition course that's in its second year at Portsmouth High School.
Hi, I'm Charlotte North. I'm from the class of 91 and did my student teaching in Portsmouth in 99. And Mr. Aruda is one of the few people who can actually remember me, so. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure why that would be. But I'm delighted to be back. I was an English literature major at Swarthmore. I have master's degrees from Brown in teaching and public policy. I have spent 10 years teaching English, but I also have some experience doing research and education policy in Boston, mostly in collaboration with the Boston Public Schools. I feel so lucky to be here, even just in these few weeks. I've gotten such a sense of the opportunities and strengths of our students. I feel like I'm the beneficiary of the whole school system, and I get to help them stretch and really be creative and make new connections as their senior project. So you'll be hearing more because we'll be trying to do more outreach for placements now that COVID is calming down. But thank you. And yeah, I'm delighted to be here.
You were saying with funny.
All right, I just want to make sure we didn't leave anyone out. Is there anyone here who district and not school? Okay. And this is the majority, a good sampling of the great crop of new teachers that we hired this year. I know we have a few people who couldn't be here. They may be joining us on Zoom. So thank you to them. And welcome to our new teachers who are a great addition to our staff.
Thank you. I just want to say on behalf of the school committee, we are so lucky to have such a really well-qualified, happy, energetic bunch of professionals who are going to be in front of the kids this year. It's really great. So welcome and thank you very much. We're glad you're here. And you don't need to stay for the whole meeting if you need to.
Then wait to see who's going to be the first one to get up. There we go.
Hi, everybody. Thanks.
Okay, well, that's always such a very joyous event. And now I have to ask, is our induction coach inducting all of them? I mean, because we are required by law to have but are you working with everybody? Wow. Good luck. How exciting. Okay. Is there any public comment? I don't think there was
There's,
anyone. I walked past the podium and
No,
I
no one
don't-
on remotely.
And no one on remotely?
checked,
Okay.
yeah.
So seeing no public comment, moving on to our PHS liaison communications. Are they here? Yes,
are here.
welcome.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Fiona Daly.
I'm Elise Kerwin. I'm filling in for Patsy Little, who couldn't be here tonight. We're just going to walk you through some of the things that have been going on at the high school since the school year started, and some of the things that are in the immediate future for students. If you want to start.
So the first week of school, we started off with our individual grade assemblies just to meet our new administration and go over the expectations for the upcoming school year, some of the new changes we've been having. Like for our class specifically, our new senior privileges, like being able to eat lunch in the courtyard, just things like that. And we also had our freshman class elections for student council. So that was really exciting.
We also have something new that's new to the school this year. I don't know if you know this, but in the past advisory was 10 minutes long. This year it's 30 minutes. So there's been new curriculum in advisories for like just community building and healthy habits for high schoolers, as well as something that's I think really beneficial to students is there's a time we call it Free Fridays for like kids to present something they've been working on or clubs to speak and show what they do. Like for example, this upcoming Friday, Model UN will be in the auditorium for who wants to go down and presenting and trying to get more kids involved, just so that we're showcasing things beyond sports or like drama productions that people might not notice.
And we have our first blood drive of the year tomorrow. And we got around like 50 signups, which is really exciting. That's one of our highest numbers, and hopefully we'll get even more with teachers.
Starting Friday is our Spirit Week for the high school because of the day off next Wednesday. We're starting this Friday. Within that, that's just the dress up days we typically do, activities like the Goofy Games for the class on class competition, and then the pep rally on Friday, as well as the homecoming parade, which you'll be receiving an email from me shortly about walking in the parade, as well as the game and of course, the dance that student council has been preparing for.
And then following that, we have the PSATs for 9th and 11th graders on October 12th. And we also, regarding testing, we're starting to begin prep for AP exams. So we're like submitting payments and things like that, just starting to get ready.
And really all else is the seniors have been meeting with their guidance counselors to get kickstarted on college preparations. These past couple of days, there's been meetings in the auditorium with guidance counselors for larger groups of kids, just to get everyone started. And that's really all we have.
That sounds like a lot. Thank
Yes.
you very much. Appreciate it. Any questions? We're good. Appreciate you coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to superintendent's update. Dr. Kenworthy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First up, personnel update since the last school committee meeting, and you can see now that it's starting to taper off. We've started the school year, so I just have two updates this evening. The first, yep, no relation. Kiki Copeland. I know, yeah, nope. Building substitute for Hathaway. And I believe military family when I met with her. I do meet with all new hires, so that I've been busy since the summer as well. So yeah, I believe she's a military family who just moved in. And then also Ryan Soares, who's phys ed and health teacher at Melville, is taking over the boys soccer program at PMS. So I think there were unforeseen last minute coaching change that had to take place there. Okay, so those are the personnel updates. Under district updates, just a few things that I wanted to highlight. tonight. So as of last week, all of our schools have held their annual open house evenings for families. These events were well attended. I was able to attend most, as was Dr. Viveros. I believe Mrs. Shea gets the award. You were at every one, I believe, right? No, oh, no. All right. But it was great again seeing full buildings and everyone in person. And you know, by all accounts, our school year is off to a great start. So it's been great to reconnect with our families. Our fall athletic season is in full swing at both the high school and middle school now. And best of luck to all of our athletic teams. And as we heard from our student representatives, club and enrichment activities at all of our schools really are starting up again, which is great to see. Last meeting, I gave you a save the date for the PHS homecoming, which we heard about again tonight, which will be Saturday, October 8th. I have another save the date for you, an event that I know you'd like to attend as your schedule permits. That is the Portsmouth Education Foundation fundraiser, annual fundraising event. This year it will be held at the Wharf in Warren on October 22nd. So we'll make sure you have the information there for tickets. And this past Saturday, I was able to attend the Rhode Island Educator Water Fire Celebration. And it was great to see our 2022 Teacher of the Year, Mr. Kevin Riley from Portsmouth High School. He was honored with as were all the other Teachers of the Year and other Rhode Island educators. So it's a great event. If you haven't been out to a water fire in a while, it's always a nice one. Usually get some great fall weather for that one, as we did this past weekend. We are reminding families again that this year we added Yom Kippur as an observance in our school calendar. So next Wednesday, October 5th, will be a non-school day for all students and staff. So all schools will be closed this day. Year-round staff will be working that day. Just a note of clarification, our next two meetings on October 11th and 25th, we will not be able to have the chamber. So on the 11th, the town council is meeting because of the Monday holiday. The 25th, we are in the early voting process. And this is a full election now, obviously coming up in November. So we have been able to utilize the chambers this past primary election and then even the special election. The regular elections take on a few different security procedures, so we'll have to find an alternate location, just an FYI. All right, that is all I have under district updates, unless there are any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Looks like we're good. Thank you very much. Moving on to presentations. Tonight, we're joined by the Portsmouth Prevention Coalition. Welcome. We haven't seen you in a couple of years, I think, due to COVID and everything. So glad to have you here.
You're welcome.
Just make sure, is the mic turned on? It's a green light
Yes,
showing.
the green light's on.
Great,
Okay.
thank you.
Hi, I'm Joan Warren. I'm the director of the Portsmouth Prevention Coalition. I was hired a year ago in June. So I'm still getting my feet wet and, you know, we're trying to build up our coalition membership. Due to COVID, we did lose a lot of membership. So we are slowly getting back, and it's been a really great experience meeting all the people in Portsmouth. The school department has been very, very helpful in many ways and great partners. So we're here tonight to present some findings from our needs assessment from 2016 through 2020. And I have with me our evaluator, Andrea Pive, who crunches all the numbers. And so she is the expert on the presentation that you'll be seeing now.
Thanks. So does someone forward it for me? Okay. I was like, now I have to remember what's next. So as Joan mentioned, Andrea Paiva, I'm a PhD level evaluator, which is basically a different name for a statistician. I do prevention work. I work at URI. I'm in a unique position here in that for the Drug Free Communities Grant, I am the evaluator, but I also administer the Rhode Island Student Survey for this whole entire state through URI. So I am always appreciative of the school committees and superintendents and all the principals because I know that's a huge undertaking every other year. We do the Rhode Island Student Survey in all middle and high school in the entire state. And we do leave it up to the superintendent and to the school committee, whether that's allowed. And here in Portsmouth, everyone's always been really supportive. I'm a data person, so I like to see like the results of that. And as you guys, I'm sure, do as well. So the BHDDH, Department of Behavioral Health, Disabilities, Developmental Disabilities and Hospitals, is who funds us through URI. And we measure things on there with substance use, mental health. We do ask a few other questions in there now. You guys review that every other year, and so we appreciate that you've done that. So my other hat as an evaluator with Drug-Free Communities, it's been really nice to have consistent data in Portsmouth. That's one of the reasons that the Drug-Free Communities grant was funded in the first place. They're always looking for the need. You have to prove that there's something going on with substance use. And then also, how can we help that? And of course, we want to see over time, is this helping? Is all the work that Joan and everyone on the coalition and all of the schools who are allowing us in there to do prevention work, is that helping? What are we seeing? Of course, we're sort of always fighting the trend, especially now with legalization coming in December 1st here in Rhode Island with marijuana. You know, we're going to see how that affects things. And we just did the 2022 Rhode Island Student Survey in the spring. The data is not released from BHDDH yet. As soon as it is, we will be integrating that in here and come back and update you. Probably less long-winded than I'll be today, because I know everyone loves numbers, right? But anyway, so I just wanted to kind of show what we've seen so far from 2016 to 2020, starting with the most recent data, so we can kind of better understand that. The other thing, and Mr. Arruda and Colin over at the high school, everyone has been amazing in helping us plan. Not every district has the same participation. In order for it to be included, for us to even look at any of the data for a certain grade, it has to be 60% of that grade has to complete it. So I know sometimes there's some pushback because the YRBS is also administered on the off year from us. And that's just like a random sample of students. But here we really strive for high percentage rates, so that way it can be very representative. Portsmouth has been historically getting some of the highest participation. That in large part is through the administration. Really, I always say they're my hype people with their teachers for the administration, sort of explaining to those teachers the reason why and the importance of us collecting this data, and them sort of monitoring the classroom. So it's not just like throw it out and whoever does it, does it. So both at the middle school and the high school, we've had great participation rates in that we can include all of the grades every year for the most part. So, so that you can see the overall participation rate was 82.3%. That's heads and tails above what we typically see. And the more representative we can be, that obviously means, you know, we're not catching just a certain subgroup of the students. When you look at the participation rate, I mean, you guys have access to this PowerPoint, so I won't go in detail, but, you know, you're sort of seeing, we are seeing students report, you know, when we ask often questions about sexual orientation and transgender questions, sometimes there's a little pushback, like, oh, should we be asking these questions of students? A lot of students are reporting, you know, quite a range in some of those questions. And it's really important for us to understand that, because we can also look at substance use by those subgroups and see if there's anything in particular that we should be, you know, helping, you know, out in a certain way throughout the community. So that's some of the information just on who we collected from in 2020. I think next is 30-day use. That is really tiny up there. So when we look at use, obviously substance use is the number one thing that we're trying to measure, trying to see what the rates are, what are students using. A lot of times when we have these sort of surveys, the biggest thing is this is self-report. Are students telling the truth? Are they answering in a, you know, a way that is meaningful? And most of these numbers are in line with what we see for the state. So if students are lying, they're lying consistently across the entire state. So obviously we see some variations depending on the towns that we live in. But one thing with the needs assessment and the update that we've been doing for the Drug-Free Communities Grant is really trying to see what are these numbers looking like? What are the substances that really are being used the most? And then that really helps Joan and others really focus and, give information, whether it be educational, support. You have student assistance counselors here. So I know that higher risk students are recommended to go there for referrals. And so when you look at some of this, you can kind of see with alcohol, alcohol and marijuana are the two highest when we talk about past 30-day use. Around 14% of students in the middle and high school, this is everyone combined, that is what they're reporting using the most of. E-cigarettes, vapes come in behind that, just under 13%. And we're sort of at this point with vapes where it's difficult because we have to change up our questions a little bit because now marijuana, THC can be put into those vapes. So when we ask questions about that, we have to be very clear, like, are they using nicotine? Are they using THC in these vapes? So our questionnaire has gotten very much more refined when it comes to that. So, and then you look at the other drugs, they're low, pretty low rates as we'd expect. Nationwide and in the state, we're seeing a rise for things like Adderall, so AD and other ADHD medicines that are prescribed to other people being shared with friends. And so that's something we're looking in the next administration to kind of follow up. And we did that in 2020 too. So hopefully we'll see if that is actually following suit here in Portsmouth or in the state. So 30-day use is sort of that one indicator that we're interested in. So we know what substances. TFC is marijuana and alcohol. And so as we see, 5 years ago when that grant was written, those were the priority substances. They still remain higher than the others. And so in a little bit, I'll talk about sort of where we've come in the past 5 years. But some of the next slides, the next couple of slides, actually, by grade, 30-day use by grade. This is just kind of showing you that as expected, younger students are reporting less use, and then that goes up, through the 11th grade. We do not assess the 6th grade, and typically we don't assess the 12th grade either, because by the spring of their senior year, the last thing they want to do is take a survey. So we usually don't even ask for them to do that. Colin is very competitive when it comes to getting our participation rates. So in some previous years, we have gotten all grades and we've gotten over 80% even of the 12th graders. But last year was a weird year, coming off COVID. So, in 2020 when we're coming off COVID. So that's just kind of, so you can see that it's kind of acting like we would typically expect with substance use. That kind of experimentation starts as they're younger and then increase in use as they get older. Now the next few, the next ones that are on here, which again, I'm not going to go through every number because it's, Tuesday night at 8 o'clock or whatever. So, but things that we're interested in. So how risky do students think each of these substances are? You'd expect if it's something that more students are using, they think those are less risky, right? So alcohol is something historically students, you see it, at restaurants, you see families, you see different types of drinking happening. Typically students think alcohol is not as risky as other types of drugs. That is still very consistent. That kind of goes hand in hand with that 30-day use being higher for alcohol. So you can kind of see here, it's like a 4-point scale that we ask. How risky do you think alcohol is? How risky do you think marijuana is? And all the substances. And we group, it's like not very risk, no risk, little bit of risk, moderate or great risk. And so we take those last 2 points, moderate and great risk, we group those together and we say, okay, how many students are thinking there's like, some higher level of risk? You can see with alcohol, drinking alcohol, only like 35 to 40% say that it's on the higher end there. Again, kind of goes with that 30-day use. Now, if you talk about binge drinking, so drinking 5 drinks in a row, they think that's more risky, as we'd expect, and less students are binge drinking. Smoking cigarettes. I teach health psychology at URI, so I tell everyone that if we did this in 1965, that number for how risky smoking cigarettes would be complete opposite, that they used to prescribe menthol cigarettes if you had a cold sometimes. Oh, smoke menthol, it's better for you. We've done a great job in the last 50 years since like the Marlboro Man died of cancer, and we've started learning that's bad for us. Almost 80%, over 80%. When talking about actual cigarettes, students are like, oh, that's bad, right? That's very risky. Then we talk about e-cigarettes, vaping, Juul, all those things. You can see it's a little bit lower, 60%. So they're still kind of, keeping it up there with cigarettes, but not quite as bad. And of course, that's because they've done a great job of marketing vapes as, the healthier alternative to smoking. But it's still up there. The thing that's most striking to me is the next one, which is marijuana. So when we ask students if using marijuana is risky, it's right along the line with alcohol. And so those kind of things, again, kind of go hand in hand with marijuana and alcohol being the highest used. Marijuana use here, and we're talking about using once or twice a week. If we ask about daily use, it might be a little different. But again, it's around that 40% of students are thinking that it's that risky. Again, it only takes a second. I live in North Smithfield, driving here, all the billboards for marijuana that are out, all for the dispensaries in Massachusetts, they're going to be here soon. So medical marijuana, if you talk to students, there's a lot of unknown. Marijuana can be helpful to some people, but they're thinking it's okay for everyone. And so this is kind of really just kind of highlighting that they're not thinking it's that risky. And that's probably the hardest thing for Prevention Coalition. I run 2 coalitions in the northern part of the state. It's the hardest part both to talk to parents and youth about, why is it risky? I have a 20-year-old and then 3 high schoolers. They say the same thing, like, Mom, if it's so common, everybody's doing it. I smell it everywhere. What's the big deal? And so we have to have that hard conversation, which is it's not great for everyone's brain. Yours is still developing. And so that's part of this. These numbers is what are guiding the information that's being given out. So we're not just kind of throwing everything out there. We're trying to really look at what's going on in Portsmouth and send that information out specifically so the schools can better understand what the students are thinking, how come they're thinking that. And it's very real questions. I think even as adults, a lot of us have that question. Like, if it's good for my anxiety and I'm 40, is it okay for my 15-year-old's anxiety? Right. So those are things we need to address. And this is the data that's really backing that up. In the same way, the next couple slides are talking about what other people are thinking, right? So do my peers think that it's bad for me to be using these substances? Do my parents think it's bad for me to use these substances? Having 4 teenagers myself, they don't really always care what I think as a parent, but they care what their peers think, right? So when we look at that, the parents, thankfully, if you look across, I think if we average that, it's like 90+% think that their parents would think it's wrong or very wrong for them to use any of them, right? But I highlighted in red, smoking marijuana, it's on the lower side, more in the 80%. So for some reason, students are starting to think that their parents would be less disapproving of marijuana than any of these others, which is really interesting, even compared to alcohol, right? So it's on the lower side. So as parents, as coalition members, as the schools, trying to get that point across to parents that even though as parents, we don't think our kids care what we think, they do, right? So we still make an impact. And when we look at peer disapproval, of course, you'd expect that they think, oh, not as many as my friends would think it's wrong for me to do these things. So they're much lower. And the 2 things that they're reporting that their friends would be more okay with if they used were marijuana and vaping. So again, these kind of help us gear what we're doing and how we're getting to them. The hardest part of reaching youth is for them to understand it in a way that makes sense to them. And my own kids tell me all the time, because I'll create something and I'll say, oh, does it sound good? And my daughter's 17 and will say, no, that sounds like a 45-year-old wrote it, right? And I'm like, okay, how do I say this? no one says vaping or using e-cigarettes. It's using NIC, right? So we have to better understand what students are thinking and gear it in that way. And this data is sort of, piggybacking on that and saying across the country, marijuana has become more popular. My dad talks about smoking in the 70s and, all that kind of stuff. We've been really comparing what marijuana today looks like compared to back in the 70s, because that's the reference point that a lot of people have, like it's not a big deal. And so that's as a coalition, that's something that we need to work on. So parents better understand that. So students understand that. And even if you're okay with an adult using recreational marijuana, kind of getting that point across that it's not okay for youth to be using it, and kind of underscoring the reasons and not just the don't do it because I said so. So this information that we're getting from the RIS is helping us better understand that as well. And so this here, one thing, and it's rare that we have enough data to look at it, but the chart itself can be a little confusing, but I'll break it down. So what I wanted to see was from 2016 to 2020, what is it looking like, right? So I always say if we're doing our job as prevention specialists, everything should be going down all the time. That's what people think. Unfortunately, we're fighting the tides, right? So marijuana is going up. We have to, keeping it stable might be good. Trying to get it to reduce a little bit might be good. And from 2016 to 2018, if you kind of just look down that column, anything green is good. It was going in the right direction. 30-day use for alcohol went down. Yellow, it's just, stayed stable, which in some times that's fine. Especially something like tobacco use. If you look at that chunk there for tobacco, our rates for smoking cigarettes was really low and we kept it there. So that's good. E-cigarettes went up 2016 to 2018. That's because that's when it really became a thing, right? That's when vaping became popular, accessible. So it was going up, and then marijuana use was actually going down through 2018. And accordingly, some of those other risk factors that we talked about kind of followed suit in the same way. So we started thinking about, well, and that's around the time, I think this is the 5th year of the DFC. So that was around the time that we started looking at, okay, what do we need to work on? Alcohol and marijuana. And we're starting to see a little dip in some of those. If you look at marijuana on the bottom, it's just lots of red. And that's, parent disapproval is going down. So becoming more acceptable, their perception, perceived risk of marijuana going down from 2016 to 2018. And if you look through 2018 to 2020, it's going down even more. So those are the indicators that we see. And we're like, okay, we're doing our best out there, right, to try to get this information out, but we're still seeing that it's going down. It's still, we're fighting it here. From 2018 to 2020, marijuana use went back up, right? So we saw a dip and then we went back up. And I started looking more into that. And I was thinking, like, is it everyone's using more? Or is it certain subgroups of students that are using more marijuana? And what we started to see is that the high school students, the rate was still going down from 2016 to 2018. It was high school students that were using less. And then they stayed the same through 2020. So they went down a little and stayed there. But the rise in marijuana use was because more middle schoolers were using. So those middle schoolers are starting to use. And so that's why we're starting to see a little rise. Not surprising to me because things are getting younger and younger, right? More accessibility. And the fact that the majority of prevention work often was geared towards high school students, because often we would think that's where they're using. We need to get to them. They're the older kids. They're the ones that are using. We're starting to see use happen in the middle school, experimentation especially. And I know that at the middle school, they're always willing to work with us. So it just kind of underscores that need to continue to collaborate and get that out at the younger ages, 7th, 8th grade.
So those top two lines there say an increase in males, not middle school.
Yep. Oh, sorry. Down in the marijuana. I was
Okay.
marijuana.
So
Yeah.
that's when we're looking
Yeah,
at.
so
All right.
in marijuana, exactly.
But you did see an increase in alcohol
Yep.
use among males.
Exactly. So then with alcohol, we also were seeing a rise from 2018 to 2020. And when I broke that down, it wasn't like the middle school versus high school only, right? So when we saw a decrease down in 2018, it was mostly because high schoolers were reporting less use. But when we looked at that increase from 2018 to 2020, it wasn't middle school going up, it was males. So there was more use being reported males versus females. And so again, as we start to gear our prevention efforts, or, you know, the schools are working in different ways, sometimes we need to create some of that information so they're starting, you know, I don't want to say tailor, but in some ways, yes, right? So those are some of the things with having this consistent data over the past 3 administrations. We're able to start to see like, okay, what's working, what's not working, and what groups of people might we have to kind of target a little bit more so we can better understand and get the point across to them. The male female thing, I don't know how we would do that, but maybe, you know, kind of break out more information or present it in a different way. But the middle school and high school, it's like, if you know that there's a rise in the middle school, you know, just better, you know, allowing that information to be given to some of those younger grades. I know sometimes administration is very willing to always work with us, but sometimes parents push back thinking like, oh, 7th grade's too young for something like this. And I know I have a 7th grader myself. Some of the things that I hear that are going on, you know, outside of school already, it's kind of picking up. And so it's kind of, you know, explaining to some of the parents, you know, it's age appropriate, but yet, you know, needed because it's stuff that's going on in the middle school. And so those are some of the trends that we're starting to see. Of course, there's a huge issue that happened in the middle of this, which was COVID. So the 2020 administration happened in the fall after the shutdown. I think, actually, now I'm going to second guess that. Every school in the state was participating, and half of the schools in the state completed before March 14th of 2020, and the other half picked up in the fall. And I'm pretty sure Portsmouth was in the fall of 2020. But because of the impacts of COVID, some of these numbers can also, it's hard, right? It's a huge confounding variable that we have in there. But this is one piece of this that as we start to report for drug-free communities and we're creating information, we're really trying to better understand what's happening. Looking at some of this trend data, I've been kind of chomping at the bit, waiting for the 2022 to see, so we can stop saying, oh, this is all because of COVID, right? Because it tends to be our summary on things. So when that comes up, we will add it here. But I think one take-home message for me with Portsmouth is it's not that different than what we're seeing in other areas of the state. Marijuana has become something of a talking point, sort of adults and kids alike, and that does impact use. And so we just have to continue fighting that and trying to figure out the best ways to present that prevention information, you know, as early as we can. So, any questions in particular? I mean, this was just a summary, so if anyone doesn't want to look through all the numbers, this is kind of my take-home messages. But
My mic is on. Question. Oh, go ahead, Fred.
You know, regarding the marijuana, we've got a big problem with marijuana because of what's likely to be legalization all around the country. And there's no adverse publicity for the use of marijuana. We have a doctor on our town council, internal medicine, Dr. Ryan, and he's anti-marijuana, but even he said there's scant evidence of the adverse effects of marijuana. I mean, he believes they're adverse, but it's certainly not stopping people from smoking marijuana.
Right, yeah, most of the work is done with adults as well. So, but I do have a really good resource, and I'll make sure you guys there's a website that has all of the scientific and journal articles that are talking about
Well, I
it.
think my major point is it's not, if there are adverse effects that can be demonstrated, they're not being publicized.
Absolutely.
And with cigarettes, the adverse effects of cigarettes only became publicized when the Surgeon General of quite a few years ago.
Yep.
I want to say Cooper.
Yep.
Was it Cooper?
Back in the 80s, yeah.
Yeah, found the money to publicize it on TV.
Yep.
And nothing like that's happened with regard to marijuana. And the other thing with marijuana and, heroin and, maybe even vaping, I don't know, is this stuff is increasingly being laced with fentanyl.
Yes.
And so you don't, I mean, how does anybody know when they're buying marijuana that they're not buying fentanyl laced? And then my follow-on, my corollary of that is, should you also be listing fentanyl as a separate drug? Because I now see that there's some kind of colored,
Yep, I just, the
rainbow.
yeah.
I mean, that's
Mhm.
straight fentanyl, I think.
Yes, it is. And yeah, I
It's-
think
It's deadly.
it's such an important point is that number one, I think, grants like drug-free communities, they're given money to actually do exactly what you're saying, like actually get that out. So like, Joan wanted to take out a billboard. I don't know how many billboards you have in Portsmouth, probably not as many as, in North Providence where I work. But, or advertising those kind of things. I mean, it's that fine line where marijuana isn't necessarily bad for everyone, right? Like smoking, you can make a case that anyone smoking can have that adverse effect, right? So it took 50 years for us to figure that out, and for people to believe us. And so we do need to get that information out. We are often kind of talking more in the harm reduction, which is watch what you're buying and who you're buying it from, because things are being laced with fentanyl. The hardest part of that is, as a prevention coalition, a lot of times we're not allowed to do harm reduction. We're supposed to be doing primary prevention, stopping people from doing it. So for us saying, if you're going to buy your weed, buy it from, the dispensary or somebody that but even then that's not the case, right? Because it could be laced with fentanyl.
No,
But
that's cheaper.
and it's,
I mean, California, for all the money it's making from the sale of legalized marijuana, and Colorado and every other state that's
Yep.
legalized it, people are still buying the
not through the dispensaries,
the illegal,
right?
because it's cheaper.
Yep. So my son, who's 20, sometimes like to enlighten me to certain things that maybe I missed from a scientific perspective, right? So he'll tell me things he hears and sees. And he said that exact thing, which was, they're still going to buy it somewhere else because it's taxed so heavily. It's so much more expensive to go to the dispensary. Like, right, but you might not die if it was, talk about what the price tag is. And, I agree. A lot of that needs to be publicized more. And as things are now legal, all those billboards that are on everywhere, it's sort of like, where are the billboards showing what's really happening, right? So there's person, Laura Stack, she's part of this Johnny's Ambassador. She's a proponent. She lost her son. He died by suicide, but he was having psychotic breaks due to the high levels of THC. And that's something that often is not publicized, right? It's okay. Everybody sees the memes and the jokes of like, oh, what's going to happen? You're going to die of the munchies. Like you had too many Cheetos after, right? There's all this like joke about it. But really what's happening is like high levels of THC are altering, especially the youth brain, and having more anxiety. Number of people who are talking about, smoking marijuana reduces anxiety. Actually, if you look at the data, it actually shows that it can increase anxiety, and then it can lead to other things like, psychotic episodes or other things. So I think it's an important piece that as we look at this, really trying to get that information out. And sometimes that requires like applying for other grants that are more like harm reduction based. It's really hard, and especially I work with a lot of high school students. It's like, they're using, but you can't say, don't buy it from Joe. You don't know where he's getting it from, right? And that's what you'd like to tell them because you want to keep them alive because the fentanyl is being laced in there. Things like rainbow fentanyl, actually just shared. I have a Facebook page that I monitor and run as well. And I just recently read something today about the rainbow fentanyl. They did remind people that, it's kind of like when I was a kid, it was like, there's going to be razor blades in your Halloween candy, or they're going to put in THC gummies or whatever. They're reminding people that fentanyl is expensive, and people are not usually just giving it out to kids because that's not something they're going to kill the kid. They're not going to get them addicted. It's kind of rare for that to be like a major concern with like Halloween candy being tainted. The main thing with fentanyl, like you're mentioning, is that they are lacing it in other drugs because it can hook you faster. The high wears off sooner. and you have a customer who comes back quicker. If it doesn't kill them first, because the fentanyl is so strong.
Okay, Ms. Blank, I think you have a question. Did you have a question?
I had a comment, a couple comments. In future presentations, I really appreciate the data that you
Yeah.
have presented here. Can you present when you have the charts, highest percent to lowest?
Definitely.
And not just keep it in the same order
Yes,
as you have it across the board on all the charts?
Mhm.
And when you do put the survey out, I saw that you do have, for the participants answering, prefer not to answer for their gender, but not a prefer not to answer for their sexual orientation. I feel that should be included as well.
Yeah, I can take a look at that. Unfortunately, I don't have the say on that. That's at the state level, but I can definitely advocate for that as well.
Okay.
And there may be one there, but maybe I didn't include it as a percentage because it may have been very low, but I will.
Okay.
They're also, every single question is optional, so they can skip, and they're told that at the beginning as well. So, but I will make a point of checking on that one to
Thank you.
see. I agree.
Great. Other questions on the data?
Just one question. How does Portsmouth compare to the state?
So this pretty, actually, I have data on that specifically, so I don't want to comment just because I may be wrong. My overall take is that it's not that dissimilar. The hardest part of the state and town level comparisons is that, like, we include 7th through 11th grade. They include 6th through 12th grade. So by including those 12th graders in the state numbers, that drives it up, and often it's hard to do a direct comparison. But I have access to that PowerPoint that the state did, so I can send that back here so you can take a look at that, and I can add it to it. So.
And final question, when would we expect to see the 2022?
They have
year?
said that it was supposed to be in October that we would get the 2022 data. So I'm hoping sort of as soon as that gets released, that we can add it in. So I'm thinking by November sometime.
Thank you. Sure. Thank you for your time.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
I appreciate it.
I do have one. I don't have a question for you, actually.
Okay.
I have a question for Joan.
Oh, sure.
It's been a couple of years and I'm just wondering, what are you guys going to be doing now that COVID's, do you have programming plans this year, or
We have some.
how are you
pro-
spending the grant money, that
Right,
kind of
right,
stuff?
right. Well, one exciting thing that we have rolling out, pun intended, is a go-kart that we have purchased in conjunction with the Portsmouth Police Department. And it is a simulated cart that will show what it's like to drive under the influence. So we just received it about 3 weeks ago, and we had a training a week ago Sunday. So we're going to be bringing that out to different events in Portsmouth, so that licensed drivers, so hopefully like 16 and a half year olds and older high school students will be able to drive this and see what it's like to be driving under the influence, and hopefully deter them from actually getting behind the wheel after either marijuana or alcohol. So that's the big thing that it took a while to get that. It had been in the works before COVID, and we were able to procure that. It did take longer than we hoped because supply chain issues. So we just got that. So that's an exciting thing that we're working on with the police. The police have been very supportive. They do the checks in the liquor stores and the tobacco, make sure that kids are 21 years old, because that is the legal age to buy tobacco products. So, we work with them very closely. We're working with Mr. Aruda and the student assistance counselor at the middle school and the new student assistance counselor at the high school, Susan Kelly. We had a hidden in plain sight display at the high school open house last Thursday evening, where we had at least 24 parents come through. And if you're not familiar with what hidden in plain sight is, it's a simulated teenager's bedroom where, we don't want parents to go ransacking their child's room, but if they think that their children may be doing some unhealthy behavior, that they can go in their room and kind of know where to look for some hidden vaping devices or alcohol, marijuana or pills, for that kind of thing. So we're just being proactive in that way and trying to just educate parents to many of the things that Andrea was spelling out, that marijuana, especially with the perception that it's okay. We are going to be rolling out some new campaigns, especially with retail marijuana being legalized in Rhode Island. We're very concerned with that. So I know we're working on a few things, and we'll be happy to report back whenever you would like to have us back.
Great. Well, look, glad that we're able to now get more engaged and
Yes. So we're
sort of
waiting.
our transitionary COVID environment, I
Right.
guess. So thank you. Great. Well, thank you both very much. We appreciate the time and presenting to the committee.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Chair, can I go back to one thing?
Sure.
My updates, personnel updates. I have a correction. The PMS boys soccer coach should be Mark Tavares. So in the coaching change, we had the correct name for the new coach. So Mark Tavares, just want to make sure.
It gets
the
into the
record.
record.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to the business portion of the agenda. Can I have approval? I think everybody was present for everything. Can I have an approval for the school committee minutes, please?
I move that the minutes of I move that the minutes of the September 14th meeting, I'll do these separately. And then the executive session meeting minutes of September 14th be approved.
Second.
Any changes? All in favor? Any opposed? Unanimous 6-0.
And then I move that the meeting minutes of September 16th and the executive session meeting minutes of September 16th be approved.
Second.
All in favor? Unanimous 6-0. Can I have a motion for the consent agenda, please?
Second.
All in favor? Unanimous 6-0. Dr. Kenworthy? Did you want to state what that was, or the field trip? Or
Oh,
not?
the excursion request, sure. So you approved for the Model UN Club at the high school to attend a conference at the University of Connecticut in November. And it requires an overnight stay, so required your approval.
Great, thank you. Motion for business item A, please.
I move for the discussion and action on the superintendent's goals for the years 2022 to 2023.
Second.
Dr. Kenworthy.
Thank you. So just following up, this was a discussion at our workshop meeting a few weeks ago. After we reviewed my goals from last year, I brought some suggestions to you for this coming year. You then gave me some suggestions, and so I went back and with my capable admin team here and made those updates. So everything that we talked about at the workshop should be reflected here. So this is what I am presenting to you tonight for your approval, which would become my district goals for this upcoming school year, which would then work down to each building level as well.
Maybe for, I don't think we need to read the key actions and benchmarks, but maybe we should read the goals into the record there.
Yep, so goal one, usually we start out with an academic related goal. So in all of these, we try to make sure tie into our strategic plan priority areas. So goal one, which ties into strategic plan priority area 1 and 3, is around two things that we're linking to helping us to increase student achievement. The first is making sure all of our high quality curriculum updates are in place. And the second is by the spring of 2023, as we're getting ready for that administration of state assessments, that we are on track to meet or exceed our pre-pandemic scores. So that's something we've continued to try to make sure we can go back to this, what would be 2019 scores, and make sure that is the benchmark that we're comparing to going forward. Goal 2, then, which ties into strategic plan priority areas 2 and 4. We have key change in the leadership for our special services. So with that, trying to kind of move forward with where we were at the end of last school year. Just, assessing be it special education, 504, but also our intervention services, and really doing a comprehensive review of data and survey of staff and families to make sure that we, make any needed updates to those services. And then goal 3, which ties into strategic plan priority area 5, which is around facilities and maintaining a safe learning environment for students. So we will be moving from year 1 to year 2 of our facilities bond capital projects. And so although a lot is spelled out there as far as what we should be working on, there are a lot of steps, as we know, we keep bringing forward from the district building committee. So there's a lot for us to do to make sure that we stay on track with those projects. And also with that goal, we wanted to work in safety and security enhancements. We did a comprehensive assessment in the spring in conjunction with the Portsmouth Police Department. And now we want to make sure we can put as many of those suggestions into action as well.
Great, thank you. Any questions, suggestions? It's a big agenda, but I think it's a good one, right?
I think so too.
Okay, seeing no further comment, we'll call for approval, please. Call the vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Unanimous 6-0. So these goals then also trickle down to all the district administrators and from there on down, so.
They will get the updated copy tomorrow.
They look forward to receiving that, I'm sure. Um,
Move for discussion and action on the Hathaway Elevator Project submission to the Rhode Island Department of Education, School Building Authority for the schematic design review.
Second.
Okay, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Duro.
We'll take B and C, yes.
Yep, so this project was discussed at our last school building committee meeting, and it was unanimously approved to bring forward to the school committee. And what we're asking tonight again is that you would approve the submission of the schematic design to RIDE for their first review. Again, there's 3 reviews. This is the first one.
And there's still a chance for it to come back, but we can't move forward on it until they approve this.
Yes, RIDE will not review the plans and give us feedback and allow us to move to the next level without approval from the school committee at each vote.
So any questions? I know it's basically installing the elevator in Hathaway, and Mrs. Little has seen it. All right, seeing no further comment, all in favor? Any opposed? Unanimous 6-0. Item C, please.
Move for discussion and action for the bathroom renovation projects submission to the Rhode Island Department of Education, School Building Authority for the design development review of Hathaway, Melville, and Portsmouth High School.
Second.
Mr. Duro.
Right, so Dr. Copeland alluded to this a little bit earlier. So we're not asking for the middle school plans to be submitted. Those cost estimates came in much higher than our budget and the previous cost estimate. So we're actually having a third cost estimate done by another independent cost estimator, and we'll compare it and come back at some future meeting to talk about that. But for tonight, we're looking for the high school and both elementaries. And now we're actually heading into our second of 3 phases. This is design development. We would like to submit that to RIDE. Again, approved by the building committee unanimously.
Mr. Ferber.
It's the same firm doing all of the estimating, all the cost estimations, right?
So we had one firm do it when we did stage 2. We had a second firm do it as part of this stage 3, and now we're getting a third firm to do it because there was a
Okay,
big
but the
discrepancy.
firm that did this one is the one that came back with the higher than
Yes,
expected.
yes, this one is much higher. Yep.
These did come in a little over budget, but they were covered under the contingency.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And we
Just,
don't
I
wanna
mean,
stop
everybody
at it.
saw that in the backup, I'm sure too, so. Okay,
You said that again, it's still within the contingency?
yeah, so each building has a contingency and this isn't actually the bid, this is just the design
This
phase,
is
right?
just cost estimating when we go out to bid. Obviously, that'll be we'll have construction documents and those folks that will be bidding will be giving us actual information and not just guesses,
Estimates.
best guesses.
All right, all in favor? Any opposed? Unanimous, 6-0. Thank you. Item D.
Move for discussion and action on the Arts Initiative SBA Capital Fund Grant Award Acceptance.
Second.
Dr. Kenworthy?
I will take this one. So I'm asking for your approval because I need to get your signature on this document to make it official. So this is a grant award that's being given to all districts. The School Building Authority, which we're used to talking about related to capital projects. The General Assembly authorized the School Building Authority to also release a certain portion of money to each district related to improvements in the area of the arts. So not something that we typically talk about. So this is a one-time thing that they're doing for all districts. So it's a per district, probably a per pupil allocation. So our allocation will be a total of $72,032. And with your approval and then signature this evening, we will submit this to RIDE, and that will allow Dr. Viveras to work with our art and music staff to figure out what we want to do with these funds. And these have to be with a lot of one-time grant funding. It has to be something new and different above and beyond what would be in our typical budget.
Couldn't just be like a replacement or buying things. It's actually enhancement. This is very exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, very exciting.
Was this something that we were anticipating or sort of come up out of the budget?
Just kind of came to us in all districts. And I'm sure there was a lot of work by like the State Arts Council around this. And one of our art teachers particularly kept us abreast of, that these funds were going to be there.
Very exciting. All right. And do we have to approve the actual expenses or you're just going to keep us abreast of what they're spending it on?
I don't think typical to grants like this. I mean, we'll provide updates to you, but I don't think you have to approve, the expenses that we
Yeah.
allocate.
I mean, it can actually be used for like beautification stuff too, right? I mean, excellent. All right, seeing no further questions, all in favor for $72,000 of free money? Any opposed? Nope, unanimous, no debate there.
I move for discussion and action on the job description for operations manager.
Second.
Dr. Kenworthy.
Thank you. So we discussed this item in executive session. I'm bringing a job description forward to you, asking for your approval for a position we would call operations manager. It's replacing a position we have not been successful in filling. So in the spring, you had approved a job description for what we were calling custodial maintenance supervisor. We've had 3 rounds trying to fill that position and have been unsuccessful for various reasons. So we went back to the drawing board, if you will, tweaked the job description a little bit, took away and then added some different responsibilities. And we think we will be more successful with this job description.
Again, replacing a position, this is approving the job description, okay? All in favor? Any opposed? Unanimous, 6-0. Item E, please. F, please.
I move for discussion and action on budget transfers over $5,000.
Second.
Mr. Diero.
Okay, so this is a third bite at the apple. So what I decided to do this time around is to present in the business agenda the items that I actually need you to vote on. And then under the reports section,
Saw that.
I'll just give you the under 5,000. I won't comment on it, but if you have questions, I'll be here to answer.
Yep.
Okay, so there are 2 budget transfers over $5,000. The first one is $14,581 from the East Bay Career Academy non-special ed tuition line into the tuition to Charter Schools Highlander for a student that is enrolled there. Second one is $76,120. It's a transfer out of our special ed tuition budget holding account into the South Coast Educational Collaborative tuition line for, again, tuition we need to fund.
Thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? Oh, you had a question. I'm sorry. I'll delay the vote, recall the vote. Go ahead.
Sorry. On the second line item, is that multiple students?
That's a single student.
Out of
you.
district special education placement.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Sorry about that. I did not mean to rush that. Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Unanimous, 6-0. Item G, please.
We move for discussion and action on the Portsmouth School District Strategic Plan for 2019 through 2024.
Second.
So this came up at the workshop. You notice our plan is scheduled to expire in 2024. And there was a lot of discussion about, given COVID and given sort of, I won't say a loss of a year or two, whether it might make sense to extend this 5-year plan to June 2025. Which would push back the strategic planning process for a year, but also give us a year to really hopefully, meet all the goals we had in the beginning. And Dr. Kenworthy, you want to give us your thoughts on that?
Again, this is just follow-up to a discussion we were having during the workshop. I think it will give us, I'm definitely in favor of this. It will give us really, an additional year to focus. We had certainly as much teaching and learning going on as we could, but that year that we shut down in the spring of 2020, is incorporated in this current plan, and then trying to get things back, that following school year. So you've heard us talk many times about it's just starting to feel more normal now that we're coming out of this. So it will be good, I think, if we could have an additional year focused on these goals. And a lot of hard work went into forming this plan back in 2019. So I would like to see it. We'll make a few updates and tweaks as well, and let it guide us for a few more years.
So are you suggesting maybe that you would, you and your team would just kind of take a quick check on it and then bring it back and sort of a revised format for us to approve a second time?
Yes.
Mr. Ferber?
I think that just answered the question. Because I was going to say, should this motion be revised to suggest extending the strategic plan to 2025? But I think your point really answers that, because he'll come back with the request.
Yeah, if you authorize me to make the changes, that are relevant to extending it out one more year, and then we can bring it back to you one more time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to jump in before everybody else, but I certainly would be in favor of extending it for a year. I think, it would give us another year of getting everything, the curriculum back. We've got new curriculum initiatives, and I feel like the 5 areas are still incredibly relevant. And I think somebody pointed out in the workshop, then we'd be on the 5 cycle. I think that was your point, which kind of nice too. So I would be in favor of authorizing the superintendent to work on the 1-year extension. So, Mr. Ferber, would you want to revise your motion to authorize the superintendent to work on a 1-year extension of the Portsmouth School Department strategic plan? So we vote on the revised motion. All in favor? Any opposed? 6-0. And then that would be, do we have to vote on the original motion? I always get confused. No, we're done. Okay. So that concludes the business portion. On to reports. Mr. Giro.
So there, these are the transfers under $5,000. There were, I believe, 3. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah. Very, very little. So this is this current budget, right? Or is this this is for the current fiscal year
Yes,
transfers?
FY
Yeah.
23.
Gotcha. Sorry. All right. No vote needed for that. We adjourned our executive session, so we are going to reconvene executive session here in just a moment. But before we do that, just like to reiterate what the superintendent said, we're not sure of the meeting location for October 11th, which is our next meeting. So you'll have to stay tuned for that. So
Is middle school voting?
yeah, the middle school is a voting location, as is the high school.
But they are not early voting locations. So early, all of the early voting
Ah,
takes place
right,
here.
is
So-
here.
so, Yeah, we have basically all our usual options, so we'll just have to decide which one works.
Whichever
best.
one you want. Okay, so thank you all for coming, and we will now reconvene in executive session.